Hey friends, welcome to the Dr. Diblin YouTube channel. My name is Connor Diblin and today we're going to be looking at the verbal reasoning section of the UCAT exam. Before I start today guys, please make sure you go and check out my UCAT Explained, the full breakdown of the 5 different sections of the UCAT exam. Before you have a look at this is just going to be a detailed run through of the verbal reasoning section. So if you're looking for kind of an overview, go and check out that video first. So the verbal reasoning section is by far the hardest for me personally, and I think for most people it's also the hardest. I think on the average it's the lowest scoring, so the average score for 2019 was only 565. Personally, I only scored 690 in this section, so it was more than 100 points lower than any other section. And I think it's mainly due to the time constraints and the pure amount of reading you have to do. For the verbal reasoning section, you're going to have 21 minutes to answer the questions, plus that 1 minute of read time that you get at the start of every section to read the instructions and collect yourself before you start. In that 21 minutes, you're going to have to read 11 passages of text, each one of between 200 and 300 words, and each of those 11 passages of text is followed by 4 questions. So it's 44 questions in 21 minutes. So compared to, say, the abstract reasoning, where you've got 55 questions in 13, you have a lot of time per question, but it's just that sheer amount of reading that really makes the timing on this section very hard. In the verbal reasoning section, what they're testing is your critical thinking. So they're testing your ability to read a passage of text, infer meaning, make critical decisions about whether something is true or false, or maybe that there isn't even enough information in the text to be able to tell. There are 2 different styles of question that you can be asked in the verbal reasoning section. The first one is the kind of easiest. It's the true, false, can't tell. So they'll give you a statement based off of the information in the text, and you've got to decide whether that statement is true and it's supported by the text, whether it's false and it's disproven by the text, or whether you can't tell and that the text doesn't have enough information to be able to make a definitive answer between true or false. All right, let's go through my strategy for the verbal reasoning section of the UCAT exam. My first and kind of key point in this section is do not start the question by reading that passage of text. You're going to get halfway through reading all of the text and your time's going to be up. You're not going to have answered most of the questions. The first thing you need to do is you're going to look at the title of the text, and that will give you a bit of an idea about what the text is about, and then you're going to look at the questions. If you haven't looked at the questions and worked out what it is you're looking for in the text, you're never going to find it. My second point, and it's kind of a continuation of the first one, is just to flag hard questions and come back to them. You want to try and work your way through, answer every single one of the true, false, can't tell questions, and every single one of the questions that you think is based on, the first few lines of the text, to do as little reading as possible to answer the most questions as possible, and then come back and do the questions which require you to do a lot more reading or a lot more kind of in-depth inference. Thirdly, you're just going to have to accept that some questions will take longer than others, and you've got to prioritise the ones that take less time so you can get those out of the way and you can have done the bulk of the questions in the time. So my fourth tip for the verbal reasoning section of the UCAT exam is to be sceptical. Normally you could rule out at least 2 of the options just with some common sense or with a quick scan of a text. My 5th tip is I'm going to repeat it. Read the questions before you read the text. You're going to have to look at the questions to be able to see what you're looking for in the text. Otherwise, you're going to have to read the entire passage of text, read the questions, and come back to the text. It's much easier to look for things like keywords when you've looked at the questions and you know what you're looking for. Tip number 6 is that if you've ruled out options A and options B and you're only left with C and D, you only need to find the smallest error in one of them, the smallest thing that points to one instead of the other, to be able to choose that answer. And number 7, kind of leading on from that, is that don't forget you can just guess, especially if you've got it down to 50-50. You can just guess and you can move on and you can try and work on the next question and get more points. And lastly, do not let a hard question get you flustered and ruin the rest of the exam for you. If there's a question and you're just thinking this is impossible and I cannot find any mention of this in the text, leave it, move on. If you have time, come back to it. Otherwise you're just going to lose more points than that question's worth. I think it's fairly obvious why something like the verbal reasoning section is included in the UCAT exam. It's a great way of testing a medical and dental students' ability to understand from text, which is a key skill as a doctor or as a dentist. And I think a key thing to remember here is that they're not testing your prior knowledge, they're testing your knowledge of the text. And so any answer to any of the 44 questions in the verbal reasoning section needs to come from the attached passage of text. If you're bringing in outside knowledge, you're going to get the question wrong because that passage of text has been designed for the question. I hope you found my strategy for the verbal reasoning section useful. Please use it. Please practice the UCAT exam. That is the only way you're going to get better. It's the only way you're going to get a good grade on the UCAT exam is to practice. There are some great free resources. I can link some of those below. If you'd like this video and you found it useful, please like and comment and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks so much.